Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to the listening public. Of course, those here on the island of Nevis, those in St. Kitts, those in the wider Caribbean. Good evening to our friends and family in the United States and Canada, and those over in the United Kingdom. Let me give a special shout out to my dear sister Jacqueline. She stays up, I'm told, in England and listen to the show. You know, it's late at night by the time the show gets there, but due to the time difference. So, Jackie, thank you very much for being such a great listener and always tuning in and being a great fan of the show. Good evening to all of those people. I know that we have a following online as well. This show is broadcast, of course, live on Facebook and on YouTube. And so we say good evening to all. My name is Mark Brantley, Premier of Nevis and host of this show, and I am delighted to be here with you on yet another Wednesday from 8 to 10, 2 hours of commercial-free talk radio. We'll get into your calls in a bit, but allow me, as I often do at the top of the show, to lay out a few things. Let me start by, of course, expressing congratulations to all those who are celebrating, whether it's a birthday, an anniversary, or some achievement, and equally commiserations and my sympathies to those who might be suffering, whether they have suffered a loss in their family or indeed they are sick, those who are at the Alexandra Hospital or at home. Please, I extend my deep condolences to those who have lost loved ones, and certainly to those who are ill, my prayers for your speedy recovery. Let me move from that quickly to say that on my way here, we've had the news in Nevis of a plane crash. It has been quite sensational because, of course, that is unusual news for us. But it turns out that a small single-engine plane carrying 2 passengers, a pilot and 1 other passenger, crashed in the sea close to Herbert's Beach on the northern side of the island. I am reliably informed that both pilot and passenger were able to swim ashore, and that there were no casualties. The plane has been retrieved and has been also taken ashore, and the authorities have responded quickly and are dealing with the situation. So we're very grateful that while the alarm, naturally, the news is alarming, that there are no fatalities and no serious injuries, and we are truly grateful to God for that. And so we are grateful that the authorities are on the scene, police, fire, rescue, that they have been able to manage the situation, and with the help, of course, of our people, they have been able to retrieve the plane. And so we await further news, but I thought I'd share that since this quite sensational news has been all over social media, that there have been no fatalities and no serious injury. And so for that, we're truly grateful. Ladies and gentlemen, we are one day past the 40th anniversary of our independence, and I just want to again say to our people how proud I am as a Premier of Nevis to have been here on this occasion and to celebrate this 40th anniversary. It has been really a momentous occasion here, an outpouring of patriotism and pride. We decorated all of Nevis, all of St. Kitts, our public buildings. I think our people were very proud to see what we had done. And as a result, I think people got involved in a very serious way. Schools had programs, and there was really an outpouring of patriotic zeal and fervor that I had not seen myself in a very long time. I want to commend the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. I want to congratulate them on achieving 40 years of nationhood, of growing up and maturing and doing better over these 40 years, better than we were, and we hope in the next 40 years to do even better than we have done in these past 40. I want to also say that because of the decision taken this year to have the celebrations in St. Kitts at night, and that was at midnight on the 18th, and to have therefore leaving it open for us in Nevis to have our celebrations on the evening of the 19th, it meant that those of us from Nevis could travel to St. Kitts to be a part of the celebrations over there, and our brothers and sisters from St. Kitts could also travel to Nevis on the 19th, the evening of the 19th, to have the celebrations over here. And we're not sure if that's going to continue, but I think it was a wonderful innovation this year. I want to go on record to thank the Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew. And I thank him because I know how rigorous his schedule was. I know that there were dignitaries in and ambassadors from all around the world who had come, that people were clamoring to meet with him. I know that there was a cocktail function at Government House in St. Kitts last evening, And yet Prime Minister Drew made it his business to come to Nevis and to be a part of our celebration, our parade and ceremony on the island of Nevis. It means therefore that he is the first Prime Minister in 40 years to have done so. Since we achieved independence on the 19th of September 1983, Dr. Drew has been the first Prime Minister to have come to Nevis and to have been part of the celebrations on Nevis. It really spoke volumes to me because for 40 years this has not happened. And that, I think, is an important historical fact, if you will, that because of how the parades have been arranged over the years, that they happened simultaneously, there was not the opportunity to do this, and that this innovation at 40 years had never been attempted before. This innovation made it possible for me as Premier and my cabinet to travel to St. Kitts to be a part of the national celebration there for independence, and equally afforded Prime Minister Drew and his cabinet the opportunity to travel to Nevis. He did not come alone. He brought members of his cabinet with him. And I am really delighted that he was able to come. I believe that the people of Nevis appreciated it, and that this has been the first independence in 40 years, so far as I'm aware, that there's been a high level of inclusion, that the people of Nevis, who have often felt that they were left out, they were appendages in this federation, that we're seeing a concerted effort to include Nevis. If you want evidence of that, not only did Prime Minister Drew come to Nevis and bring with him cabinet colleagues, notwithstanding that he had to rush back to St. Kitts for engagements over there, he made it time to come. But not only that, the Independence Committee that was chaired by Dr. Marcus Natter, and Dr. Natter is also the Cabinet Secretary to the Federal Cabinet, and that committee had individuals on it, representation from Nevis. And I, quite frankly, marveled at the fact that that committee determined that there should be a national budget for this national celebration of independence, and that events in Nevis would be paid for from that national budget. That, ladies and gentlemen, is unprecedented. It has not happened in 40 years so far as I'm aware. It has certainly never happened since I have been in government over these past 10 years. And I think that that is significant. It is significant because it is demonstrative of a new approach, an effort to include, an effort to be inclusive, an effort to say to all of our people, whether they're in St. Kitts or they're in Nevis, that they matter. And I believe that that is important. I have watched carefully. I have seen various prime ministers at work. And whilst I was yet a boy when Dr. Simmons was prime minister, and so I can't comment too much on his tenure, I certainly lived and experienced Dr. Douglas as prime minister. I lived and experienced Dr. Timothy Harris as prime minister. And in fact, I was a member of Dr. Harris's unity government. And even as a member of that government, I knew what the troubles and the tribulations and the difficulties were. As a member of that government, we tried valiantly to ensure that the islands of St. Kitts and Nevis were better positioned, cooperating better, functioning better. But it was so much undermining, backbiting, and just bad mind, because I can't come up with a better description, because sometimes things were done for no reason other than bad mind. But at the end of the day, that government imploded. I won't get into that. That is a story for a book that I hope I can write at some point. But it speaks volumes that what we're seeing now is a genuine effort on both sides of the Narrows to work more closely together. I hasten to say that this is not a political effort. What I mean by that is that Dr. Drew is certainly not CCM or supportive of CCM. I have no idea. He has never said to me anything about the politics in Nevis. I equally am not Labour or supportive of Labour. He has never asked me whether or not I have any interest in supporting Labour, and nor frankly should it matter. What he recognizes is that he is the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, and he recognizes that I, at this point in our history, am the Premier of Nevis. And there has to be room for the Prime Minister sitting in Bastille to cooperate and function in a cooperative way with the Premier sitting in Charlestown. I think that it is evidence of the level of dysfunction that this country has experienced over the past 40 years that some actually find that idea offensive. Someone said to me the other day, if you want to create confusion on social media, just post a picture of you and Dr. Drew together. Some actually find it offensive. Some actually get upset. I have seen some commentaries and some commentators, people that one would assume they went to school. Some of them even have PhDs. So one would assume that they have sense. But the things that they say, because the Prime Minister and Premier are trying to bring the federal government and the Nevis Island administration closer together to agree on policy prescriptions, to see how we can grow the country together. Dr. Drew has stepped up in a significant way in relation to geothermal energy. And I was frankly surprised to learn up to recently that whilst I was in the government of Team Unity and pushing the idea of geothermal energy, which is not just for Nevis, by the way. Geothermal energy has the potential to supply all of Nevis and all of St. Kitts. It has the potential to dramatically reduce the cost of energy. It has the potential to allow us to satisfy our climate action objectives. If we can realize this potential, we become the greenest place on planet Earth. And so there are advantages to this exploration for both islands and for our entire country. We have the ability to move our economy to a green economy and to wean us off the centuries-old dependence that we've had on tourism. Geothermal, I thought we were agreed and moving in the right direction. And you could understand my surprise that in recent times I've met with foreign dignitaries and asking for support on this geothermal project, and I was told that they now need to see evidence and be persuaded that the federal government and the Nevis Island administration are on the same page. I thought that was a funny comment to make, so I inquired, well, why would you need to see that? We've always been on the same page. And they said, no. The government that I sat in as a cabinet member, that government in Bastia, unbeknown to me, was sending mixed signals that they wanted to explore their own geothermal in St. Kitts and therefore were not in support of the project in Nevis as a national project. And I marveled at that, because the science showed that the resource in Nevis is the resource in the country. There is no resource in St. Kitts that's viable. But that's an example of a decision that was done for bad mind. Because who would it help? It was as if you're saying, well, let us cut off our nose to spoil our face. Nevis has geothermal up there. Let it stay in the ground. It's neither going to benefit Nevis nor benefit St. Kitts. Let it just stay there. And so I'm having international agencies now saying to us that they want to be persuaded, because under the previous administration, of which I was a part, I want to emphasize and continue to emphasize that, of which Nevis was a part, that under that administration, the signals that they got was that Bastia was not interested in the project in Nevis. Well, Dr. Drew has come in. I'm not in any coalition government with Dr. Drew. He and I have no political pact. But he has come in and he has said, listen, Premier, let's work together. St. Kitts and Nevis must be able to progress. We're not going to agree on everything. Not even husband and wife agree on everything. But let us see how we can manage the relationship for the benefit of our people. I call that maturity. I call that growth. I call that good governance. There will no doubt be a time for politicking, but we've just come out of an election a year ago. So are we going to politic for 5 years, or are we going to settle down and actually do the work that people elected us to do? And I think that this is important. That Dr. Drew, in his first official act, lent his support 100% to the geothermal project, signed off on a letter that the previous Prime Minister had refused to sign off on, to the CDB, to allow the CDB then to consider, and the CDB then favorably considered some $17 million as part of the developmental fund for the project here. We have had some setbacks in terms of the bidding process, but the technocrats are working on it. And up to today, I had very fruitful meetings with both the British and the Canadian governments in relation to this particular project. But that to me was a clear sign. I believe it must have been the first week that Dr. Drew was in office. And again, let us treat this against the backdrop that Labour and CCM have never had any political coalition. NRP Nevis was with PAM until they were not. Then they were with Labour until they were not. Then they tried something with PLP. That didn't work out. They tried to jump back on Labour's bandwagon when Labour got in. But so far, I haven't seen that there's any movement. Well, in fact, jumping doesn't make a difference because they have no seats to bring to the table. But the CCM, the only coalition that the CCM has ever entered was Team Unity, PLP, PAM, and CCM. And so one could understand, quite naturally, that the Hawks in Labour would say, hey, let us go after the CCM and let us go after Mark Brantley and the NIA. But I thought it was instructive that the Prime Minister, Dr. Drew, took a view that he could separate the two, that he could work with the NIA, that he understood that he holds a high constitutional office, and that there is a need for engagement with the Premier and with the Nevis Island administration. And so very early on he sent some signals. I got a call from Dr. Drew. It must have been within the first 2 weeks, but certainly within the first month that he was in office. And he said to me, Premier, are you aware of some funds that comes in from a donor to the government each year? I said, no, I'm not aware of those funds. He said he can't believe. I said, no, never heard of those funds. We've been arguing over fair share. Those funds were never factored in because I wasn't aware of them. He said, anyway, 25% of those funds will now come to Nevis. I didn't ask him. We didn't have a discussion about it because, as I said, I was not aware of these funds. And he has kept his word that 25% of those funds have come to Nevis. They have come to Nevis last year, they have come to Nevis this year. And to me, those initiatives, those steps speak volumes. Action, they say, speaks louder than words. Because he could have done just like his predecessor. A man I sat down in cabinet with, imagine I sat in cabinet with a man for 7 years and didn't know as foreign minister that these donated funds were coming in each year. I didn't know. And within a month of being in office, Dr. Drew called me and asked me as Premier, are you aware of these funds? And when I said no, I was not aware, he said, all right, you know something, going forward, 25% will come to Nevis. And that has been the case. Those things, to me, I need to say them publicly because sometimes I think people are out there and they see this as some kind of game. No, this is a genuine effort to engage. I went to London recently. I went, in fact, for my younger daughter's call to the bar, a personal trip. And as would be the norm, I would reach out to the Prime Minister just to say that I will be out of country, as I think that is the appropriate courtesy and protocol. And I indicated that there was a particular meeting that I had been invited to attend, at which some UK parliamentarians would also attend. And of course, we had just been greeted with the news that the UK had imposed visa restrictions on our brothers and sisters from Dominica. There was a lot of speculation, in fact, a lot of false reporting, yellow journalism, trying to suggest that somehow St. Kitts and Nevis was next. And naturally there was a concern. And so I said to the Prime Minister that I would be having this meeting, and he immediately said to me, could you raise this issue? Because when I was included in his delegation to go to England for the coronation of the King, there was some work on the margins, and we had in fact been able to meet with some UK parliamentarians. And so he said that he saw this as a follow-up, that the relationship having been established, that I should go ahead, and that this was the position. Now, at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, I'm leader of the opposition nationally. I'm the Premier of Nevis locally. But the last time I checked my passport, he said, born Donga Henley Part, citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis. It means, therefore, that whatever hat I happen to wear, or you for that matter, that our abiding commitment should be to our country. And we should seek wherever possible to promote what is best for our country. And so I went to England and I met and engaged in meaningful discussions about this particular issue and others. I then faithfully reported on my meeting to the High Commissioner in London, Dr. Kevin Isaac, to Dr. Denzil Douglas, the Foreign Minister, and to the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Drew. I will go further and say that Dr. Douglas and I, quite by accident, traveled on the same flight from Miami to London. I did not know he was on the flight. I assume he did not know that I was on the flight, because it is only upon landing in London that we were departing the plane that I saw him and he saw me, and we engaged with each other. He was merely transiting through London, but I used the opportunity to tell him about this meeting, and he said to me that he was aware and also gave it his blessings. And so, having met, I reported to the three people that I've identified what the content of that meeting was and the commitments that had been made. We have since seen a follow-up, because the all-parliamentary group established for St. Kitts in the UK Parliament paid a visit, a familiarization visit to St. Kitts and Nevis. And we were able to engage with them in St. Kitts and also in Nevis. But it didn't end there, because Dr. Drew went on radio himself and spoke about it and said that he had a level of confidence that he could ask the Premier and leader of the opposition to engage, because he understood that I know the issues and that the introductions had already been made. Now, I'm saying these things because to me they're strands. And strands, when woven together, becomes a rope that gets stronger with each strand that is woven in. He did not have to do that. He could have been like others in the past and sought to say, no, your opposition, I really don't care, don't want anything to do with you. But he recognized, well, if I have somebody who's competent and who's going to be there in London anyway, and who's going to be having a discussion anyway, why not get that person to advance the interests of St. Kitts and Nevis? And that's exactly what I did. Now, all of this is quite unprecedented. But it didn't stop there, and it has not stopped there. I have heard this debate about fair share, and people say, oh, Mark Brantley brought down the government because of fair share. I want to say to the public tonight that the CCM really could not have brought down Team Unity as a government. I do not regret that that government collapsed, because the leadership of that government had gone astray. And I say that bluntly because that has been my position. Dr. Harris, who led Team Unity, failed us. He failed in terms of his commitments to the team, and he decided that, as he put it in his own words, he was the top dog. But you see, in a team, it's not about top dogs, it's about people working together, showing respect for each other. And that team imploded because of that. The I syndrome. The absence of team. There's a reason why they say there's no I in team. And so that led to the demise of Team Unity. But mathematically, and I hear the talk all the time, I smile to myself. because, oh, Mark Brantley mashed up Team Unity. Let us recall that in 2020, Team Unity won 9 seats, 9 of an 11-seat parliament. The CCM created history in Nevis by winning 3 seats. The People's Action Movement won 4 seats. And the PLP, the People's Labour Party, won 2 seats. 3 plus 4, 7 plus 2, 9. The Labour Party won the other 2 seats to make it 11. Now, the last time I checked, the majority of 11 is 6. And that's all you need to form a government. A good example is Dr. Drew's government now. He has 6 seats. 5 seats in opposition. And so from a purely mathematical point of view, if Mark Brantley and the CCM decided that we will withdraw our 3 seats from Team Unity, 3 from 9 leaves how many? 6. Pam had 4, PLP had 2. Mathematically, therefore, there's absolutely no way that CCM could have mashed up, destroyed, or brought down Team Unity. Team Unity could have said, listen, CCM, bye-bye. We still have a majority and we will continue. In fact, it was the considered view of the People's Action Movement and its leadership, the Honorable Sean Richards, who came to me and we had that conversation, and I agreed, because I and the island that I lead, the island of Nevis, had been suffering. The agreements that we had entered into had not been adhered to. And we were simply saying, listen, let us adhere to what we agreed to. Those agreements, encapsulated in the Charleston Accord, were done for a purpose. And that purpose was to give us a framework within which to govern. It was under that agreement that Timothy Harris, for example, was selected as Prime Minister, even when he only had 1 seat. 1 seat to the PLP. And the 1 seat got the big cheer. It wasn't because we thought that Timothy was better than anybody else in terms of his capacity to lead, but that was the agreement. Negotiated between people we thought of good faith and with goodwill. And that's where we got there. But something about power, once you get it, you start to forget. And I live long enough to hear what Charleston Accord are you talk about. That ain't no law. Well, that is true. But it's the same Charleston Accord that catapulted Timothy Harris into the Prime Minister's chair. And so when I started to realize that after effort, that there was really no intention to honor the commitments, and there were commitments to Nevis, commitments to a fair share of the CBI resources. And yes, Nevis did better, much better than it had ever done. But my contention remained that there was a need to have a formula, that Nevis was not subject to the whims of whoever happened to be in office in Bastia, but that we could move this forward. I've heard a lot of chatter, and I don't really bother with the chatter, because as I said, in the fullness of time, some book will be written and people will have an opportunity to sit and read and understand all the dynamics that were at work. But just like a marriage that is having difficulty, we did not initially, certainly I did not initially decide, you know what, let me go out and publicly bash those members of the marriage. Let me go publicly and say what the difficulties are. To the contrary, we tried our very best to create to the public a sense of calm, a sense of balance, while internally we sought to address these issues. And we sought until the very end. Until the very end. Team Unity finally imploded, but it would have imploded a lot earlier. In fact, I recall it was in February of 2020 that the Honorable Sean Richards called me to a meeting and indicated that as far as he was concerned, I remember him doing like this, said he's done. And he was ready to go at that point. And I said to him, no, let us try still to work things out. But we could not work things out because the then Prime Minister was not interested. He had persuaded himself, because he used to rent a crowd to take everywhere with him. So whenever that crowd started to see him, they shouted, the boss, the top dog. And he started to believe the concoction of his own making. Drunk with power, he thought he could go it alone. History, as I say now, he's gone from Prime Minister to just an ordinary member in the House. And so, that is the reality. Now, people have said, Mark Brantley isn't talking about fair share anymore. I have responded in two ways. One, Terence Drew never promised any fair share to me or to Nevis. That was, as far as I know, no part of any agreement that was made. He had no agreement with me, nor with CCM, nor with Nevis. And he could easily have come into office and said, you know what, I'm going to go back to how it was, when Nevis got nothing, and when we did get something, it was labeled a loan. Remember those days. He has not done that. He has said to me in our very first meeting after he became Prime Minister, let us engage in dialogue. Let us see what we can do. But in the interim, he has continued the monthly disbursement to Nevis. He has also ensured that on every occasion that there is some policy prescription that will benefit the citizens of this country, that the island of Nevis was included. He came up with the CBI dividend. The island of Nevis was included. He has now announced some relief by way of $1,000 to persons. He was at pains to point out the island of Nevis was included. He declared last year a double salary. He was at pains to point out the island of Nevis is included. We celebrated 40 years of independence. He was at pains to provide the necessary budget for the national celebrations, including the island of Nevis. So you see, sometimes we hear the whole hullabaloo. But we must look and contextualize that the argument about fair share was that the people of Nevis should no longer be left out of whatever benefits are being made available to the country, for the simple reason that we were certainly on the citizenship issue being asked to bear the burdens when they came. I made the point repeatedly that when Canada imposed visa restrictions, they didn't say, Nevis, we know you're not getting anything from citizenship by investment, so the people of Nevis, you don't need a visa to come. But St. Kitts, you need a visa. No. Canada said, Tut mun saman bagay will require a visa. So if I'm going to pay the price, why should I not also benefit from what is clearly a joint asset of this nation? And so fair share was about getting a fair share, getting fair opportunity, being engaged, being involved, allowing the people of Nevis to be involved, allowing the people of Nevis to play their part in national development, not excluding them because they happen to be born in Nevis, but rather looking to harness the best talents that we have in the country, whether they were from Tabernacle, whether they were from right here in Taylor's pasture. It didn't matter. The question was, how do you harness the best? And that really is where the argument of fair share comes in. It's about opportunity, equal access to opportunity. People talk about gender equality. We talk about equality of the races, where we are talking about equality among Kittitians and divisions. Because I don't like to sugarcoat things. The reality is that for a long time, the people of Nevis were treated as if we were second class. That has been the reality. And it makes no sense to seek to deny that. I believe there's substantial evidence to support that. And so we are now moving past that. We are saying now, let us create a new norm, a new paradigm. And that is what we are working towards. And nevertheless, notwithstanding that, whenever there's a photo of the Prime Minister and the Premier, whenever there's an engagement by the Prime Minister and the Premier, some in some quarters start to cuss. Because you see, there's some in this country who profit from and who have only ever known political confusion. There are some who understand very well that the best way to approach things is to divide and conquer. That is the selfish motivation that some have. I am at an age now where I am saying I have the benefit of well over a decade in politics. In fact, I entered politics in 2006. We are now in 2023. So I've been there now for 17 years. And what is the value of that experience if it is not to learn from mistakes, to see what has worked, and to evolve? And the CCM as a party has said quite clearly that our role now is to produce, function, develop the island of Nevis and her people, and contribute to national development. That's what we're seeking to do. And we are prepared, therefore, to work with who's in Bastille. As Bastille is now saying to us through Dr. Drew, we are prepared to work with who's in Charlestown. That, I think, has to be the new approach. And so he's taking a risk, because I'm pretty sure there are elements within the Labour Party who are saying, oh, go after Nevis, go after Nevis. I hear them. I'm taking a risk because there are elements, no doubt, in Nevis, including within the NRP, who are saying, oh, you sell out, you this, you that, you the other. I hear them. But at the end of the day, what is leadership if it's not to lead? If it's not to seek to take our people to a better place? If all we're going to do is spend our time saying to the public, elect us, and then we start to fight and war and say the most awful things about each other, then what is the value of that? The people of Nevis now are going to receive $1,000, just like their brothers and sisters in St. Kitts. Gone are the days when we're hearing about programs in St. Kitts, but the people of Nevis can't benefit, even though the programs are being funded through the Citizenship by Investment program. Everything that's announced. Back to school voucher. I forgot that. Again, Dr. Drew said, listen, for those who qualify in Nevis, I'm going to extend that concession to them as well. So we have the evidence. It is early days, don't get me wrong. But for a man whom I did not know prior to him becoming Prime Minister, I had never had a conversation with Dr. Drew prior to him becoming Prime Minister. I knew of him. I knew he was leader of the Labour Party, but we had not engaged. And so our relationship is a year old in a very real way. But I think it's a relationship based on respect. And once you have respect, everything else follows. He knows that I have tremendous respect for him. And I believe, based on how he has dealt with me, that he has respect for me and for the office that I hold, as I respect him and the office that he holds. And respect is the foundation for me of any successful relationship. And so I say that because you hear a lot of chatter. Now, we, as I said, celebrated 40 years of independence. It's a time when, in my view, we put differences aside and try to come together. I realized that the Prime Minister announced a number of what they call reset initiatives. Many of them were St. Kitts specific because they dealt with housing, NHC, I think it's called, in St. Kitts, people who had mortgages there, etc. We understand that. And others were national, such as the $1,000 windfall that will come. But someone drew to my attention that the leader of the NRP, Nevis, came out with a statement. You know, I have said in the past, and it is true, that she appears to be in a deep slumber, like Rip Van Winkle of old. In fact, I have renamed her Janice Van Winkle. And every once in a while she wakes up bewildered, puts out a statement, and then goes back to sleep. I think it is instructive that on December 12th this year, God willing, it will be 1 year since we won re-election on the island of Nevis. And during that period, during the period thus far, Today is September 20th. There has been no conversation, no communication, no letter, no phone call, no WhatsApp, no anything from Janice Daniel Hodge to me as Premier of Nevis requesting or asking for anything on behalf of the people of St. James or anybody in St. James. Now, I want people to understand me when I say that, because every other representative elected, and even those who are not elected but certainly are candidates and have some support, have found their way to say to the government, listen, I need this done over here, I need that done over there. I need to have a project done in the constituency, or there is a gentleman here, a lady there, a child there who's having some concerns. That's called representation. That's what it's called. You can't tell me because you're not in government, you have no role in representing your constituency and your constituents, that if you are aware that a single mother is in some trouble, that she has an issue, that she needs help, that you're not in government, so you don't see that as your responsibility to bring it to the attention of the government? January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. 9 months so far. I have heard nothing from Janice Daniel Hodge on behalf of anyone or any project or anything in the parish of St. James that she now represents in the Nevis Island Assembly. Whenever she wakes up from her slumber, it used to be once a month, it looks now it's twice a month, she puts out a statement. And it's always a statement criticizing or cussing something. That's the only statement that she can put out. There's never a word of positivity, a word of congratulations. We had, for example, some people from St. James awarded for Independence 40. No. None of that. It's always some word of condemnation and criticism. Fine. But I remain amused and bemused. And this is why I feel that what I am suggesting about this long slumber is not so far-fetched. Because the leader of NRP is out of touch in terms of what is going on in her constituency and in the community more generally. And I say that, and I believe I have the evidence to say so. You see, when you have lived a life where you're not involved in anything, because prior to becoming leader of NRP, there was no involvement in anything in the community. In fact, most people still, I believe up to this, they don't know who they are. Was involved in nothing. No church group, no community group, no school group, no sponsorship, no scholarship, no nothing. And then one day, voila, handpicked. And we'll get that. That will be a chapter in my book as well in terms of who handpicked her. Because I know how this happened. I know these 3 people who were involved. And the final decision rested not in Nevis but in St. Kitts. And the truth is going to be told because Nevisians need to understand what has happened and what was happening. The decision on the NRP leader was made in St. Kitts, not in Nevis. They were required to just rubber stamp because that decision was made on high in exchange for promised funding for the election and an undermining of the CCM. That's really what this was about. I recall being in the House and Dr. Hodge raised this issue about lands and pennies lands and not paid for. And it's just like when you're playing cricket and a man bowl you a lollipop or full ball, full toss. You're playing football and the goalkeeper leave the goal empty because she opened this door. And I said, but anybody worth their salt would know that the reason that people in Nugent Heights and in Pennies can't get their title for their land is because NRP whacked away the money that was there and never paid for the lands. And so the company in Trinidad that holds the mortgage is refusing to allow any transfers of those lands. We have been trying to pay the debt when we got back into office in 2013, and we're still paying that debt. But it tells me she was clueless. Just wake up and looking around and asking, what keep? Don't know what is happening. Because if you're going to go into the court of law to argue law, you must first try at least to learn the law. If you're going to go into the theater to operate on somebody, you must learn about anatomy. And if you're going into politics, you must learn the politics. You must know what the history of your party is. You must know what the issues are. Clueless. Just wake up, don't know what's going on. Listen, somebody sent me a statement today. Oh, Dr. Drew is doing this in St. Kitts and doing that in St. Kitts, and nothing is being done in Nevis. No. As I said, the $1,000 is a national policy. The other policies Dr. Drew announced is taking off customs duties, taking off customs service charge, and reducing VAT to, I think he said, 13% for people to invest in their own homes. It's a brilliant move. But guess what? Nevis has been doing that since 2020. Since 2020, Nevis introduced those policies to stimulate construction as part of our COVID-19 response. I just had to reach and say, listen, let me get some statistics. The NIA, here's the statement that we put out, back in 2020. The NIA is eager to witness a rebound in the economy as we restart business activity following the lockdown imposed because of the health crisis created by the novel coronavirus known as COVID-19 pandemic. In such, the NIA is currently providing these additional fiscal incentive packages geared towards the advancement of the construction sector. The support to this sector is to reduce the cost of construction. So we are encouraging our people, particularly our young people, to build. We know that a lot of divisions have land, so we're encouraging them now to build or to speed up their decision to build. Here is what we said back then, 3 years ago. Continued tax incentive of exemption from the payment of import duties and customs service charge on materials for first-time homeowners. This policy was implemented in 2012 and provides exemption from the payment of import duties and customs service charge on the purchase of material used to construct one's home. Over the years, this policy has brought significant benefits to people of Nevis in assisting them to realize their aspiration of home ownership. So basically, the first-time homeowners program existing since 2012 was continued. We went on. That exemption, that is from customs duty and service charge, will be extended to persons who are undertaking renovations to existing homes. So you see, it was initially only for people building their first home. We said no. If you want to fix up or change that on a bedroom, a bathroom, whatever, remodel, we'll extend it to you. It was extended to persons who are undertaking renovations to existing homes. In such instance, individuals will be granted exemption from the payment of import duties and customs service charge on materials valued at $30,000 EC dollars and more. Put differently, we wanted to encourage you the bigger jobs. 30,000 EC we figure, that's just relatively minor repairs. Bigger jobs, that's where we want. That's going to generate more work. We're going to give the incentive there. Payment of value-added tax will only apply for the local purchase or importation of materials involved in the renovation. The process for application will be similar to that of an application for a first-time homeowner, and we set out what the process was. This is a public document. We went on. Individuals and businesses undertaking commercial and industrial development projects, such as new construction or major renovation to business places for offices, manufacturing plant, medical centers or retail stores and commercial rental spaces, such as apartments, will be granted exemption from the payment of import duties and value-added tax. So we take off the import duty and the value-added tax and will only pay a 12% customs service charge on the materials associated with the construction. But here's where now, because we're talking about commercial, we say the construction should be in excess of $1 million. EC. Where the value of the construction is under 1 million, the business will receive exemption from the payment of import duties and customs service charge, but will have to pay the VAT. So, for the commercial houses, doing apartments, doing commercial space, industrial space, spending over $1 million, they got customs service charge off, they got customs duties off. I'm sorry, forgive me. They got customs duties off, they got VAT off, and they paid a 12% customs service charge. Where your value of your construction for commercial reasons fell below the $1 million threshold, then you got off your customs service charge and your duties, but you paid VAT. And we had a condition attached that your construction team should have at least 80% of workers there should be nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis. We went on. Individuals and businesses undertaking major renovation to their hotel plant or guest houses will be granted exemption from the payment of import duties and value-added tax, and will only pay the customs service charge on the materials associated with the renovation of such a business. There is no upper limit on the value of such a project in total material cost or labor. So if you were spending $10 million, you will get off your customs duties and your VAT, and you will only pay customs service charge. Again, we say that 80% of the workers should be St. Kitts and Nevis nationals, because we were trying to stimulate employment of locals in the construction sector. We went further. We said in preparation for the hurricane season, we provided a tax exemption from the payment of import duties for the purchase of items for hurricane preparation for the period of July to November 2020. Those items will include generators and hurricane shutters. This is the document. Went out 2020. I then asked and said to the good folk here at Ministry of Finance, I want to thank Mrs. Joan Brown. She provided the information promptly. I said, tell us, how has this program worked? And they sent me a note here. 112 persons have benefited from the COVID-19 Relief Assistance Policy, which started in 2020. That policy exempts the payment of import duties, customs service charge, persons who are renovating their homes, commercial and industrial property. So 112 persons. The policy captures persons who would have benefited from the first-time homeowners building material policy, but wish to undertake some addition or renovation. Previously, those persons would not have qualified for any further exemption. It went on to say that there have been inquiries from Finance in St. Kitts about this program. The question has been asked essentially, how is the program working in Nevis? And we have been sharing that information with our colleagues over there. It went on to say physical planning must approve applications involving any major renovation or addition. To date, you remember I tell you 112 have benefited from the COVID-19 Relief Assistance Policy, which started in 2020. To date, 492 persons have benefited from the first home owner building material policy starting in 2012. The tax exemption is the same. It went on to say, let me just find the bit here that I need. Because it gave me a global figure. I regret it doesn't seem like I have that information. I'm not sure. I'm sure I'll be able to find it on my phone. But the total was that we had well over 500 people who had benefited thus far from these various programs. I wish I had the precise number for you, but certainly over 500. What that means, ladies and gentlemen, is that between 2020, when the NIA cabinet sat and said, how do we respond to COVID? How do we jumpstart the Nevis economy? We did some things in agriculture. We did some things in terms of stimulating the real estate sector, real estate sales by waiving the alien and rolling license fee. We did some things in terms of the construction sector. And as a result, we had during that period well over 500 people benefiting. That translated into activity in the economy, purchase of materials. It translated into people getting their new homes, renovating homes. It also translated into construction jobs. Now, let me go now to some statistics provided as well from planning. And this is approved building applications. So this is what has been approved from 2020 to June 2023. In 2020, we had 273 building plans applications approved. 273. In 2021, that number jumped to 352. In 2022, there was a drop. It fell to 300. And in 2023, up to June, we had 159. So if you add those up, 273 plus 300, that's 573, plus 159, that's 673, 59 and 73, help me out here, 132, so that's 732, and then in addition to that, we had an additional 352. So we're seeing, therefore, over 1,000 building plans approved between 2020 and 2023. And of those, over 500 have benefited from the programs that we have put in place. I say that to say that the reset that we are seeing in St. Kitts has, in a form, already existed in Nevis. And people in Nevis, the leader of NRP may not know, because, as said, she doesn't inform herself about anything. But the people in Nevis are already benefiting from that since 2020. And we have extended it. I believe it expires in December of this year. Because we have said that you've had 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. So that has been in effect now for the better part of 4 years. And that was a stimulus package that we put in place to stimulate the construction sector and to stimulate homeowners. That has nothing to do with the number of homes that we have been building through the NHLDC. Because remember, homes built through the NHLDC already benefit from the absence of VAT and customs duties and the like. And so when you go over to Madden's, you go to Rice's, you go up here to Craddock Road, you go up to Hamilton, you go up to Garner's Estate, University Heights. When you go to those places, you see homes under construction through the NHLDC that have benefited from that separate program. And so we agree with the reset and what is being proposed. But that reset is now being done on St. Christopher because the pilot, if you will, has been rolled out in Nevis, and they have now had the benefit of seeing how it has stimulated construction activity and home ownership on the island of Nevis. That is what happens when governments are working together, sharing information, saying, well, okay, this worked, this did not work. I suggest you try this way or that way. And sharing that information. That is what has been happening here. So when I see the criticism about why is this not being extended to Nevis, they're talking about water and electricity. We have given numerous times during the pandemic relief in relation to water and electricity. We have said that now that we are post-pandemic and we're working our way out, that persons must pay their bills. And I'm not going to resile from that, because I think that our people have a responsibility to be responsible citizens. So we say you must pay your bills. We don't want to cut off anybody, but if you find yourself in some difficulty, go in and speak to NEVLEC, go in and speak to the water department, because their mandate is to collect, not to disconnect. And they have been able to put a lot of people on programs to try and assist them through a difficult period. So we are not adversarial. We are not trying to punish anyone. But we are saying at the same time that the entities have to run. And water and electricity are basic rights that people have. We can't generate water, we can't generate electricity on air. We have to be able to pay. When Delta said to us, you owe us $3 million and we want our money, we can't not pay. We have to find the resources. So we're asking our people, if you use the utility, then pay for it. And if you're having a difficulty, then go in. You know, last year, this government, having struggled with deficits, could have had quite a good surplus. But instead of reporting a surplus, you know what we did last year? We decided to take that money, and subsidize the fuel surcharge for Nivisions because people were crying out about the high cost of electricity. It plunged us back into the red. But I still feel that it was a good decision to bring some relief to the people of Nevis. We did not remove it from businesses, but we certainly removed it from domestic users and therefore sought to reach the homes. The single mother over in Barnaby, the person living alone there in Zion, the family that is struggling there in Hanley's Road. We said we will provide some relief, and that's what we did. Because we feel that that's what governments do. As much as we would have liked to go into the house and beat our chests and say we have a significant surplus and we've turned things around, we felt that it was better to support the people of Nevis who were crying out about the high cost of electricity. You hear anybody crying about the high cost of electricity now in the same way? No. So the government is saying, if we are prepared to assist, then please also do your part and pay your bill. Because when you pay your bill, you allow us to continue to provide the service and provide electricity. But I made the point that the fiscal incentives in relation to housing have really been implemented here in Nevis since 2020. And that through collaboration with the ministries and the necessary inquiries as to, well, you all are doing this over there, how's that working? That has now informed to some extent the new approach that we are seeing. And we think it's a good approach because we have seen in Nevis that it has spurred construction, and that sector is still very vibrant at this point, to the point where now you can't find people to do work for you in Nevis because people are going from job to job. Some of them have 2 and 3 jobs at a time, these contractors. And that, I think, is a good thing. So I just wanted to set that out and to say to the leader of the NRP, stay awake. Stay awake. This sleepy business, not paying attention, not informing yourself, not surrounding yourself with people that can help you to understand the issues, and then mouthing off. The worst place to speak from is a place of ignorance, because you don't know what's going on. Just wake up, wipe your eye, wipe your kip, and whoever tell you something first, you go out and you say so. And you end up looking, dare I use the word, foolish, because that is not the level of representation that people want, or need, or should have. And so I just want to make that crystal clear, that a lot of these initiatives are already at work here on the island of Nevis, and we are already seeing the benefits of them right here in terms of growing the local economy. Now there's another issue I want to get into, but I realize that the night is growing late, and I know people may want to call in on some or any or all of what I've said tonight. And so I'm going to open the phones, 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. Those are the numbers to call if you want to call in. But the last issue that I wanted to touch on, and I'm going to come back to it because I want to dedicate a show to it, is the rhetoric of violence that is creeping into our politics on behalf of the Nevis Reformation Party. I want to speak to it, but I just want to speak to it in a vacuum. I want to bring some clips and some public expressions here so that people at home and abroad could hear for themselves. I'm going to do that show because I think it's an important show. Because throughout our 40 years of independence and throughout our democracy, we have never had any hint of violence threatening people. And some of the comments, I heard one commentator for the NRP say, people need to be shot. S-H-O-T, shot. Another one said that he's calling for revolution and that the government needs to be removed and call for guns. And I am saying that there is no place And if the NRP leader would wake up, she would say to her team, no, that is not the way to go. But when you're fast asleep, you don't know what to keep. That's the problem. Let's go to the phones. We'll take some calls and we'll see what the public has to say. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Good evening, Miss Sheriff.
Good evening,
night.
my dear. How are you? I am well, thank you.
I would like to start by wishing you all a very happy independence. This day mark our freedom from colonial rules at times when countless heroes united to secure our right and liberty. Let us remind their sacrifices. Independence Day, it's not just about history. It's a reminder that we held the power to shape our nation future. Good night to my cousin over there in Canada. To the Pemberton family over there in Cox, good evening. Also to my two nephews. My Sheriff, you had a wonderful speech yesterday, I'm telling you. And I love you, love you, love you. People getting mad about because I say I love you. And you know me love you. So you only love me back. Good night.
All right. Thank you, my dear. But you don't have a scripture for me tonight?
Without me scripture. The one that's so good.
All right. I love you too. Thank you so much for the calls. And I really appreciate it. And yes, I think Things for Independence went beautifully. One of the biggest and best celebrations we've seen in a very long time. And I think people were pleased. And so, as I was saying, the lines are now open, 869-469-1616 and 1700. Let me go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening to you.
Mr. Mark, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Okay, great. I have a little concern, and I don't know if you could help me get to understand it. The PM said a few days ago that he's going to reconnect persons count. Is he rewarding persons for not paying their bills? Because I'm struggling to pay my bill every month, and he's putting back on people's count who fail deliberately, I use the word deliberately, to pay the bill. Well, I think formally he should reward me for paying the bill. What do you think? Have a good night.
Well, caller, thank you for that. The Prime Minister, I believe, is, as he said, he's doing a reset. I believe that those are questions that are properly for him rather than for me. I am sympathetic to your argument because sometimes I feel that some people are really willful and decide that they're not going to pay. They have the money to pay, but they use their money for other things. I have never understood, for example, how somebody would spend $1,000, $2,000 for a phone, the latest phone, but they won't pay $300 to keep on their electricity. So I asked somebody one time, well, you have this expensive iPhone, well, how you charge it? Because you don't want to pay for your electricity, but you're spending $2,000 and $3,000 for the phone. So I think our people's priorities can be misplaced, and I always preach that people need to be responsible. I think callers to this show, listeners to this show would hear me time and time again saying that our people need to set sensible priorities and be responsible. And whenever you get paid, my view, you must sit down right away and work out, okay, this is my rent or my mortgage, this is my light bill, my water bill, my food bill, and you work out your child support and all that before you get to Guinness and Black Label and partying, before you get to hair and nails and eyelash. To me, those are the priorities that people should be setting, but that is me. And I will say that because I think that that is how our parents, who had very little, but they raised us. Don't beg nobody. Always cut your cloth, cut your suit according to your cloth. Right? Make ends meet. Poor people, but were dignified. We went to church every Sunday, we went to school, and we made do. We have a phenomenon now where a lot of our people are simply trying to keep up with their neighbor, trying to keep up with their friend, and as a result of that are not concerned about being responsible. So caller, I am sympathetic because when you announce these policies, you are right, it does seem, well listen, well I've been paying all my life and I don't get a break, but those people who refuse to pay are getting a break. That is a sentiment that I can understand. But at the same time, I think that any time you give any kind of forgiveness, that is the case. That is, those who owe that will benefit, and those who have a clean sheet and who pay the bills will not get a benefit in those circumstances. So that is the situation. I don't know what the thinking was behind it, what analysis would have happened, but as I said, those would be questions that you would need to put to the Prime Minister. I gather that he does from time to time go on radio and engage, and I would suggest that you do that there. Let's go back to the phones and take some more calls. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Mr. Sheriff, Matthew 19 verse 26. But Jesus beheld them and said unto them, with men this is impossible, but with all things are possible. Good night.
Good night, and thank you for the scripture. I really appreciate it. And we're going to continue to take calls. I think somebody else is calling. Let's try this caller. Good evening. Good evening, caller. You're on the mark.
Yes, good night, Mr. Brantley.
Good night to you.
I know you're well, and so I don't have to bother ask you how are you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I trust you're well as well.
It was a genuine effort between the leaders of both St. Kitts and Nevis. Congratulations to you both.
Thank you.
It was a good gesture and real maturity.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to read a little scripture here from Psalm 136, and I'm going to read 3 verses. Oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. Oh, give thanks unto the God of gods, for his mercy endureth forever. Oh, give thanks to the Lord of lords, for his mercy endureth forever. Let us all give thanks. Eh? Okay, good night.
Good night, and thank you so much.
Yes.
All right, let's go back to the phones. No? Okay. So we are waiting for you to call 869-469-1616. 869-469-1700. We have 45 minutes, and so we are calling. If you want to say something about independence, you want to say something about your experience, how you felt on our 40th anniversary, you want to say something about the fiscal incentives that I've mentioned, you want to say something about the politics, you're free to call in. Or for that matter, you want to say something about something else, then you're free to call in. But going back to the point that I was raising, and I said I think it's serious enough that I want to devote a show to it, because we have these talking heads, what I call these empty vessels, that continue to go on radio, purporting to be speaking on behalf of the NRP. And some of the things that are being said, I believe, are dangerous in the extreme. You know, somebody reminded me the other day that when there was the genocide in Rwanda, that genocide was in large measure fanned, the flames were fanned by people on radio, referring to their fellow country men and women as cockroaches, and calling out to their supporters to go out and kill the cockroaches. And that led to a massacre of well over 1 million people in Rwanda. Words have impact and meaning. And it is important for those of us who get behind these microphones, who get behind the computer, those of us who are seeking to influence public opinion, that we be responsible in what we say. Because as the old people say, where things start and where they're going to end. Where things start and where they're going to end. And the Jamaicans say, what's sweet in the goat mouth, sour in the bam bam. Let us not go down this road of preaching violence in our politics. Let me go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark. Hello?
Mr. Mark.
Yes, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's me again, the same guy who spoke about the electricity.
Yes.
You know what I think should have been done? Because the payment time to say, which is a good initiative, I must say that this one is a good initiative. That he's going to give those persons who are Social Security worthy $1,000. Well, if there are any person who owes electricity, put that $1,000, put to the bill and put it on. Because if you put it in their hand, there's still no pen and mark. There's still no pen on. And as they rightfully say, they could buy a phone for $3,000. Go to every show, just 3 times per night, per week, to every show. And then I adhere to the obligation. And I must be honest with you, Mr. Mark. This thing worry me bad. He not had no card to put on anybody count. I don't care anybody gonna tell me. Because they need to hold the responsibility. There are other persons who are less fortunate, struggling to pay the bill. No put on anybody bill. Make them pay the bill. Make them pay it. Some people ain't gonna want to hear me say it, but I'm saying it from the bottom of my heart. Make them pay it. Because see what's gonna happen in a mark. They're gonna put on the current and 3 months, they get cut off again, then I'll pay. Then they're gonna make the PM look. I don't want to use the word foolish, but how they're gonna make him look.
So Carla, hold a minute, because I think you've made a very interesting suggestion. So you're saying that since many people will benefit from this $1,000, that rather than putting it in their hand, it should be diverted to pay if they offer the water, electricity.
Yes, of course, yes. Because if you put it in the hand, Mark, they're not going to pay none. They're going into the back of Ramsden boy 2 pounds and 2 shots, and they go up on the script Friday night, and then me go pay my bill again next month. So what they should have done, maybe do some kind of research, and if I'm going to call my own name, and if Austin Coker's bill has been cut, and he but because I am Social Security worthy, he's going to give me $1,000. Put the $1,000 to my bill, so automatically I get it, but me get it in my hand. I get it as my incentive. Because if you put it in the hand, Mark, and Mark, you know it, but you may not want to say it because you're a politician. If you put it in the hand, then they're going to pay it, Mark. And then they're going to come back to you again, Mark Mountain. Lord, Mr. Mark, me current cut, how you could help me? And you just give them $1,000. Make them be responsible. People lean too much upon government. Mark, it's hard to say from your mouth because you're a politician. But people lean too hard upon government. They need to stop it. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you very much. And this is why I think these programs are important, why we open the lines, why we hear from the public, because I myself had not considered the point you were making, but I think it's an excellent point. That if in fact people owe the government, essentially, because NEVLEC, SCELEC and all of those are government institutions, that rather than paying them the money in their hands, you pay the bill for them. That way they reduce that bill, they're in good standing, and they're able to get that relief, but as you say, indirectly, rather than getting the money into their hands. I am, however, urging our people that if they get this windfall, that they really do the right thing with it. So I'm hopeful that they don't go in the back of rams, like you say, and decide that they're going to spend it that way when they have these bills that are owing. So if you owe your child support, use $1,000 to try and clear up that, or some of it. If you owe NEVLEC or SCELEC, if you owe your bills, try and clear them up using that money, at least some of it, so that just be responsible. If you just take it and decide, man, I get $1,000 free money, I go in Lyman and go in and spend a weekend at Marriott, then I feel that at the end of the day you're not made better off, especially if at the end of that period you still owe for these other outgoings. So I think you need to be prudent and sensible and responsible. That's the word I like, responsible. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark. Hello? Hello, caller.
Good evening.
Good evening, you're on the air.
Yes, Mr. Brantley, good evening.
Good evening to you.
Yes, Mr. Brantley, good evening.
Good evening, caller. I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Okay, I am a person. I'm a person living with disability.
Call, I can't hear you. Could you speak into your phone? Don't listen to the computer. Listen to the phone.
I was saying.
Yes.
Are you hearing me now?
I'm hearing you. So just speak into the phone. Yes.
Okay. I'm a person living with disability, Mr. Brantley.
Every time you say I'm a person, you go quiet. I don't know. I'm not hearing you.
Are you hearing me any better?
I'm hearing you now.
Okay. I'm a person living with disability.
Yes.
I'm originally from St. Kitts, and because of my condition, I lost my hand and my foot. Of my condition, I ended up here on Nevis, living with a caretaker. Mr. Bradley, I was getting a voucher of social welfare in St. Kitts of $200. And when I came over, I asked them if it could be transferred to Nevis because I'm living in Nevis. They said, no, I have to apply on Nevis, which I did. And safe to say, I got the $200. But high and below, Mr. Brantley, one morning I got a call from the office, and these were the words of the person that called. Said, good morning, are you Mr. Nolan? I said, yes. They said, no question asked, no question answered. But I was instructed that we should cut the $200 into two. So I'm now receiving $100 with no explanation, Mr. Brantley.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm calling to find out if there's any way that I could be granted back that $100.
So you're calling the radio to ask, did you call the department to speak to the permanent secretary, to speak to the minister with responsibility for that?
Mr. Brantley, whenever I call the radio station, I make sure cross my T's and dot my I's. I had a conversation with the Honorable Eric Evelyn.
He's not the minister in charge, but anyway, you had a conversation with him and what?
And his comment to me is that he would look into it and we can go. And I haven't had another conversation. I happened to meet a young lady that works in the ministry, and she was saying that there's some things they're putting in place, and but it's a runaround, and I don't understand. I don't know who else I can talk to, but to see that I was getting a $200, and then I just received a call to say it is cut by $100, I find it kind of hard.
Okay, well, call is the first of this I'm hearing. I will seek to find out what's going on, because this is not my ministry, and I wouldn't know the details of your case or any particular case. But I'll certainly seek to find out what is going on. You have given your name, so I've made note, and I will try to have the department contact.
I have not given my name. I said I'm St. Kitts.
No, you didn't. You just say something about Mr. Nolan? I thought I heard that.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Nolan.
I'm sorry?
There's many Mr. Nolan.
I don't think there are many Mr. Nolans who are amputee from St. Kitts and living in Nevis.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
So, I know who you are.
that is what I want. Yeah. Now you know me. You know who I am.
Well, I know who you are. I don't know if I know you, but I know who you are. So I will have a conversation and we'll try and get to the bottom of that. But if that decision was taken, I would need to know why that decision was taken. I can't speak to that because this is the first I'm hearing.
Okay.
All right?
So is it safe to say that I should look for calls that you know who I am?
You won't get a call from me. You will have a call from the department that is dealing with your situation. All right?
Sir.
I will seek to find out from them what is going on and have them call you.
And so I should get a call from the department.
I think you should expect a call, yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
All right? Thank you very much. All right, we're at 9:25 and we're taking your calls. 869-469-1616, 869-469-1700. Let's go straight back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Hi, good night.
Hi, good night.
I have one question. What are the plans put in place to support the St. Kitts and Nevis national robotics team this year that is traveling to Singapore, given that this is the largest group of Nevisians to be selected to represent on an international stage?
Well, I don't know that there are any plans put in place. The robotics is a St. Kitts initiative, meaning that it is being done through, I believe it's the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College in St. Kitts. I know that there are some Nevis representatives on that robotics committee now. I have recently received communication where they're seeking sponsorship, and so we'll have to look to see what we can do. But I will be misleading you if I said to you that there were plans in place, because this is not a government initiative as far as the NIA is concerned, so we will not have budgeted for it. This is a situation where we have been informed that the Robotics Association is traveling, that there are some Nevisian members and they're seeking sponsorship as they've come in the past and sought sponsorship. So we'll see what we can do.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, you're most welcome. We're taking your calls. 869-469-1616, 869-469-1700. Those are the numbers to call to be a part of the show. So, as I was indicating, I think that I will, in fact, have a special show when time permits, and I want to delve into that issue of the NRP, because that is who is doing it, seeking to bring violence into our body politic. I think it's very important that we have these people, and I know that if people in CCM were to be making these utterances publicly, that I would say to them it has to stop as the leader. And if they were not prepared to stop, then I would have to distance the party from that, and to do so publicly. I don't know who's in charge of NRP now, because you have some people who talk and talk and talk. They're doing all the talking. You're hearing very little from the leader. Only when she wakes up twice a month, she says something. Other than that, you're not hearing anything from her. You don't know where she is. You don't know what her position is on anything. And certainly it doesn't appear that she has any control over these empty vessels that continue to clang and make the most noise. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark. Hello?
Yeah, good night, Honorable Matt.
Yes, good evening, you're on the mark. Go ahead.
Yes, it's so sad to hear you say that person try to bring violence into politics and into Nevis. And who they think the hot in? They think the hot in you? They hot in the islands of Nevis and the people them. And I glad to hear that you raise this, and this is a serious thing, because I mean that's how we black people always think, violent, and that's the way to go. It's sad to hear that, because listen, Honorable Mark, in the BVI, those all politicians here does have issue in the house, but when it's finished, you see them outside talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when it's done, it's done. But why supporters will go on the air and start to create this kind of thing? I mean, you don't want this thing in Nevis. It's so blatant in other countries that violence and killing. And that's the way how we as black people in Nevis thinking, and people because of power. It's so sad to hear you speak about that. And you know, I have some listeners who are listening to this station who will represent me tomorrow, because I sometimes I call in and speak about some issues.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sad to hear you bring that to the air tonight, that people try to inject violence into Nevis because of politics. Come on, it's so sad to hear that. You know, and I think you have to take it serious. It's a serious thing you have to take serious, because, you know, and pinpoint who creating it. And if you check out what happened to Trump, a lot of people follow Trump and in jail today.
Mm-hmm.
Because of violence. You understand? But I'm listening more, but bring the show and speak about the issues. And I think it's sad for people to bring in violence in Nevis and thinking. Nevis itself.
Well, caller, see, here's my concern. Since 1992, by my tally, Nevis has had some 16 elections. It's a lot, because, you know, we have local and federal, and we've had a couple quicker than anticipated. The NRP has only managed to win one of those elections. And it seems to me now that there's a level of frustration that is building. And some people, when they can't persuade the electorate that they have the right ideas and they are the team to lead, they want to resort to other means. Because one of the things that one of the callers to one of their programs said is that he can't wait for no 5 years for another election. The government has to be removed now. He calling for revolution. And if he needs to start the revolution, and then he started to talk about guns. As I said, I don't want to come and say these things without actually having the clip, because I want listeners to hear. And that was a program that was being hosted by 3 individuals, including Hensley Daniel, our former deputy premier. None of them stopped the caller, reprimanded the caller. None of them. In fact, one of them said something to the effect that these are some of the things that they have been saying to give the impression that this is the position for the NRP. Well, my position is, you just came out of an election on December 12th. You lost. You lost the popular vote, and you lost in terms of the number of seats. If you lose the popular vote call in any election, it means that the majority of the people who voted did not vote for your party. And then you lost the majority of seats, so you could not form the government. Rather than seeking to evaluate where you went wrong and why for 15 elections you can't win, because as I said, you only managed 1 out of the last 16. You instead are now going to be encouraging that kind of chatter. And you see my problem with it. You see me, I have had this radio program now for over 15 years. Nobody going to call in on this station so long as I am here and say something untoward. There could be the biggest CCM supporter, I don't care. And I will allow it, because it ultimately reflects on me. People are going to say, oh, on the mark, I hear this and that. And time again, people have called in. I have disagreed. I have said, no, that is not the way to go, or I have cut them off. Because I think we have a responsibility. And that's why I mentioned Rwanda, because it was radio programs just like those, calling people cockroach and saying exterminate them, that led to the killing of over 1 million people. Where things start is not where they're going to end. And leadership requires that we condemn these things and tell them it cannot be that you are the spokespersons for any political party, because that puts into our body politic something which is alien to Nevis. We've had election after election. We've never had those types of concerns. And so that is my concern, that the frustration of not being able to win an election is now leading to this talk that I'm hearing. And as I said, I will bring the evidence.
Well, Honorable Mark, you have to really take this thing serious, because
Yes.
the way all the young guys have today behaving with guns and that kind of thing, this is not something you have to take lightly. And good night, and thank you for the time to be on the air. I'll be listening to the show. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are hearing the various views and opinions. I want to thank that caller who called in from overseas, and then go straight back to the phones and take this call. Good evening, you're on the... No, we lost that caller. Okay, caller, please call back in. 869-469-1616, 869-469-1700. We have about 20 minutes left or so, 25 minutes left, and we're taking your calls. The issue of violence in our politics, as I said, is a no-no. We shouldn't encourage it, we shouldn't condone it. And when I bring the evidence, because I don't just want to speak in a vacuum, when I bring the evidence, I will be calling on the leader of NRP to condemn it. I will be calling on her to rein in these empty vessels that she has out there making so much noise. Because if she cannot, and if she will not, then I believe that speaks volumes. You see, some of us, like myself, lead from the front. I don't send anybody to make a statement for me. If something is wrong in the government, I come forward and I apologize. I take the responsibility, because as the leader, the buck stops with me. Others send people to do the work so that they could claim, oh, my hands are clean. It's not me, it's not me. I'm not the one saying these things. But they're actively encouraging, in fact, giving instructions to their minions to go out and say and do the worst form of things. And I have a concern about that. And I think leadership has to be responsible. You want the praise when things go well, you must take the responsibility when things go badly. That is the nature of the beast. You can't have some and not the other. And so I will be calling, and I'm sending the clarion message now. on the leader of NRP to come out and apologize to the public for her team members going on the air to encourage violence in our politics. There's no room for it. I have referred both statements to the St. Christopher Nevis Police Force that I'm going to bring when the time is right. I referred both statements. And I believe that all of us right-thinking members of this society should condemn it. We have elections. You want to be in government? Learn how to win elections. Simple as that. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening. You're on the mark.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Brantley.
Good evening to you.
This is Miss Doe. I would like to speak to you. I would like to speak to you after here.
Okay, can I give you my number?
Yes, please.
Yeah, my number is 662
662
6003.
6003.
662 6003. You can call me when the show is over. You can call 662
Yes.
6
Yes.
0
Yeah.
0
Yes.
3.
Okay.
You can call me when the show is over. You can call me tomorrow. Okay?
Yes, okay.
All right. Good.
I'll give you a little call when the show is over.
All right.
Thank you.
No problem. We have 20 minutes left. We're taking your calls. 869-469-1616. Let's go back to the phones. Do we have a caller? Good evening, caller. You're on the mark. Caller, are you there? Hello? Okay, looks like we've lost that caller. Caller, could you just hang up and call us right back? 869-469-1616 and 1700. Those are the numbers to call if you want to be a part of the show. We have 20 minutes left, so you have ample time to call in and make your point. Let's go to the phones. Good evening.
Ladies and gentlemen. Good night, Mr. Brantley.
Good evening to you.
Good evening. In spite of everything, you're running the country good. Country running good.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. God bless you. Okay, we're taking your calls. We're asking you to, when you're calling, shut your radio off or move away so that we can hear you clearly. But that caller calling to express her view that the country is running well, and I think that that is true. Despite the challenges, we're making considerable progress. I realize now that the work has started in earnest on the bypass road. The contractors have said 100 days, and I'm hopeful that they can stick close to that schedule and that should really give us that road completed by Christmas. We're going to have the water taxi facility completed by Christmas. I know that the work on the parking lot is supposed to start soon. So we're doing what we need to do. We're progressing. Perhaps we don't pay enough attention, and we need to do more in terms of bringing out what's going on here on the island of Nevis. But we're working on that as well. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening. You're on the mark. Hello.
Hi. Good evening, sir.
Yes. Good evening to you.
I'm just calling to make a plea that if you guys could look at that drainage next to Moffett side, Moffett liquor store
in town. Yes.
You're right, and just kind of fix that area right there for me, you know.
When you say fix it, what do you mean? The drains?
No, the drain, right. It's the big open gap right there. I don't know if you guys could put some kind of grill or something on it.
Ah, I see.
Could make it more.
So you're not talking about cleaning the drain. You're talking about covering it.
Covering, make it more appealing for pedestrians evenly, and not to allow trash to go inside the drain and cause a stench. You know?
Okay. Well, I know that Public Works usually would deal with that. They use the fire services to flush the drains, but you're making a different suggestion. So I'll have a conversation with Spencer Brand and see what's possible.
Going up Happy Lally the same way.
Yes.
Those little culverts for the go up to enter need to be
on both sides at the corner. You mean?
Right.
Yes.
Right. So to not allow the trash, you know, the debris from food packaging and stuff like that,
right,
to go in the drain and cause a stench.
Okay, I hear you. I don't know. The technocrats, the engineers may have a good reason for it. I don't know, but certainly I'll mention it to the area representative, the Honorable Spencer Brand. He's the man with responsibility for town to see what can be done. Okay.
All right. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for the call and for the suggestion. Again, why these shows are valuable, because citizens out there participating, wanting better for their country, see something that needs correcting, and they're stepping up and seeking to correct those things by making the necessary suggestions. And so I'm very grateful, caller, for that. I don't know what the answer is, but as I said, I will speak to the Honorable Spencer Brand, who's the area representative, to see if something can be done there. Ladies and gentlemen, we are proposing to have a special sitting of the Nevis Island Assembly I believe that the date that has been proposed is the 28th of September. That sit-in is being done to commemorate our 40th anniversary of independence, and as a result we expect to have some speeches there speaking to independence and speaking to what that journey has been and what it means. And so we certainly look forward to that special sit-in happening on the 28th. I think that is the scheduled date. If that were to change, then no doubt we would say something to the public, but I'm told that that is the date that is being contemplated, the 28th of September. I should also say that as a continuum of our celebrations for independence, I would want the public to take a look at the Bath Hotel. It is really a marvel to behold what we've done in terms of lighting the Bath Hotel in national colors. It is really spectacular. Of course, we have the 40th anniversary sign, the logo up there at the Nevis Nice sign. The Nevis Nice sign itself is in national colors. We had a wonderful cocktail reception at the Deputy Governor General's house, the government house, last night as well. It was interrupted towards the end by rain, but I really do think people had a good time, and we had a wonderful fireworks display. So I would really just want our people to continue in that spirit of patriotism, looking out for each other and seeking to do the very best that we can together. So that sit-in is going to happen, and then this weekend on Saturday and Sunday we have free movies being played at the Malcolm Guichard Recreational Park. Those were movies that were filmed here in Nevis as part of our movie industry, and so we invite the public to go out and be a part of that as well. Let's go back to the phones. We've lost that caller. Caller, please call back in. So this weekend on Saturday they're showing the movie, I think, 1 Year Off, filmed entirely here in Nevis, and on Sunday they're showing the movie Christmas in Paradise, I think it's called, which was also filmed here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So the two movies filmed here, you get an opportunity to see local actors, you get an opportunity to see local scenery, and really to just relax and enjoy a free, entertaining moment with you and your family. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark. Hello?
Hello, good evening, Mark.
Good evening, you're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Okay, Mark, there is any way that I'm living in Stony Grove. I'm in the last house in Stony Grove.
Yes.
And Mark, I'm surrounded by so much bushes where I'm living. I want to know if there is any way I could get assistance to these bushes to clear down next to me.
We don't have a program for that in place at the moment. What we've been trying to do, caller, is to encourage our people, because that land that you're talking about has to be owned by somebody.
Yes, Mark.
So a lot of people are leaving their land in that state, and we're encouraging people to again keep their lands clean and do the necessary, not to allow bush or trash or whatever to pile up on their lands. The government doesn't really have a budget to go in on private lands to clear lands. We don't have that. We don't make arrangements for that. Some have suggested that we probably should do it and then charge the people. But there is nothing in place, as far as I'm aware, as yet, to make that happen.
I'm in the last house and it's a lot of bush. I don't have a light post. Mark, I get robbed twice. Where I'm living, you don't even have a lantern post, a post there with a light to project for me to see anything.
Right.
Okay, well, no light.
All right, well,
where I be. It's your bushes.
Okay. Well, on the light issue,
twice.
Okay, well, I'm terribly sorry to hear that. On the light issue, we may be able to do something there. I will reach out to Nevlik on your behalf in relation to the light. But on your bigger point about clearing land, those are private lands, and we have no policy of clearing private lands for people, who are refusing to clear their own lands. So what we can try to do is to find out who owns the lands there, and to see if we can intervene with them to get them to go and clear their lands.
Mark, I get robbed twice, and I get nothing from it. I lost twice. I don't even have a light, a floodlight for you reflect back for me see anything.
Okay. Well,
it's unfair.
Okay.
It's unfair for me to burn my light. I pay my bill. I don't like old Netflix. I don't like old water. Me bill up to date. and say for me burning my life just to see what going on.
Okay.
And that is these days numbered what's going on.
All right. Like I said, I will undertake to give a call to Nevlik. I will do that as soon as I'm off the show. On the clearing of the land, though, as I said, we have no policy to clear people's lands. So I can try to help on the light. That's as much as I could offer you tonight. I will seek to find out who owns those lands and see whether or not we can intervene to have them cleared.
The one, land, the one behind me, I think people said this body zone.
All right. Well, I don't know. So let us not call names on the air if we don't know. So we try and find out, okay?
Okay, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you.
Good. God bless. And I'm sorry again about the robbery. That is not a good thing at all. But let us hope that we can get some enhanced security by getting the area better lit. Thank you very much for your call. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening. You're on the mark.
Thank you very much for your call. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening. You're on the mark.
Caller, are you there?
Hello, Mark.
Yes, you're on the air.
Yeah, this guy who checked me up on the radio station, Everson Powell, what are you going to do about it?
This guy who did what?
Threatening you on the other radio station, saying what he going to do to you. What are you going to do about it? I know you have the clip.
Well, as I said, I have 2 clips. And what I've done with those 2 clips is that I've sent them to the police. I'm not sure.
I was listening, and I was thinking the host would have said, that's the wrong way you're going. Next person calling says he needs more person like he. So that's why I asked you what you're going to do about it. Can he call him name? Say what you're going to do if you come up here.
Okay. Well, I'm not even aware of that particular caller then. I didn't hear that clip.
Yeah.
No, I didn't hear that clip. I heard.
Couple Saturdays ago, he called in and said that. And when I think the host would have said, that's the wrong way you're going. Then,
who was the host? Who was the host? Could you remember?
Yes, you have fella Daily Tulu. I think Henry Dana was there too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as I said, I didn't hear that one, but I have 2 others, and so that is just further evidence of these calls coming into these programs, and the hosts aren't helping. In fact, they're encouraging it.
They're encouraging, and somebody from I don't even remember the guy name from States does a host and show saying he needs fellas like he to stand up to stand up to you.
But I don't understand what this standing up is all about. You have an election, you go out and you fight the election. If you can't win election, what are you going to do after the election? You're going to try to introduce violence to change the government?
But I don't even say
right?
Tulu. I don't even study about the rest guy, but Tulu who say some kind of pastor, Christian or weaver, and you understand? I want to know what he pastor telling he.
All right.
Every Saturday they on the radio, and I don't know what church you going and what the pastor telling he.
Well, we all have, of course, the right to air our views, but when we cross the line and we start to preach violence, and one of the clips that I have is, in fact, of him, and a lot of people have expressed disappointment because they just don't seem to understand. I don't know what to say. That there is a line that you do not cross, because once you go down that road, you let that horse out, there's no way you're going to bring it back.
But I was thinking that you have this clip with the same fella, Everson.
No,
I call his name and say what he will do if he come up here.
Okay, well, as I said, I don't have that one. I'm sorry I don't have that one, but I'm sure I can find it because everything now is online. So you said it was a few Saturdays ago. So
yeah,
I'm sure that
a few Saturdays ago and say what we'll do to you.
I'm sure my team can find it. But thanks for that. I wasn't even aware of that. So when I was talking about it, you see, I didn't even know about that one. I have some others that I was referring to.
I was thinking that you have it. So, you know what I mean? So I say, let me say it before you bring it out because I hear it for myself.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have a look. All right. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is On the Mark, and I've mentioned a lot of things tonight, but this is the one that seems to be resonating with people, where clearly the Nevis Reformation Party and its commentators are injecting violence and violent rhetoric into our politics. It should stop, and all of us should condemn it. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're On the Mark.
Mark.
Yes, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Lord, I don't want to laugh, but I share the pain of that lady just call and speak about bushes around her place. And you hear what she said, Mark? She has struggled to pay she light bill. That old lady says she's struggling to pay she light bill. And that is why I told you that this light thing in St. Kitts got me worried. Because look at this lady now calling you, Mark, and telling you that for her own safety, she a bunch account around she house. For her safety, and she has struggled to pay the bill. And people get this kind of reward for not paying the bill, Mark. I ain't gonna stop straight until something being done about it, because I think it is wrong. Have a good night.
Well, thank you very much. And yes, I hear the point that you've made, and you've made that point, and certainly I agree with you that the lady talking is, supports the argument that you're making. She said something I thought was instructive. She said she don't like to owe. She don't owe water, she don't owe electricity. And, some of us are like that, and I encourage more people to be like that, just to make sure that you are doing the right thing. If you can't pay all, we understand, but come in and pay something. Sometimes people ain't pay water and thing, for years. I didn't talk about months, for years. Whenever you hear people got water bill in Nevis of thousands of dollars, unless there's a problem there, it means that they have not paid water for donkey's years, because the truth be told, that water is the cheapest thing in Nevis. So, when you hear people got bills, hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, they ain't paying no water for a long time. So, sometimes I wonder how you bathe every day, wash every day, cook every day, use water every day, and you don't even make an effort to go in and pay. Say, here's $25, here's $50, let me pay down on my bill, nothing at all. And then people come and they say, oh, the government is harsh, and the government is this, and the government is that. But we're not encouraging our people to be responsible. And I think that is important, to encourage our people to act responsibly at all times. That is critically important. And I'm not going to stop saying it, even though it may be unpopular. Ladies and gentlemen, this is On the Mark. We have about 6 minutes left, so we're taking your calls on 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. Just to go over some statistics, which I mentioned earlier, but I think it's important because it shows what we have been doing here on the island of Nevis, that in 2020 we had 273 building plans approved. 2021 that jumped to 352, 2022 300, 2023 159. So when we do the math, we have well over 1,000 construction plans approved by our planning department for that 3.5 year period. If 2023 up to June is 159, if that continues at that momentum, then we're going to be over 300 again for 2023. And that is when I say that we have had good policies encouraging construction, and that has fueled that construction activity. Let's go back to the phones. We have 5 minutes left. Good evening, you're On the Mark. Hello, caller. Caller.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, we're hearing you now.
Okay. I got here one cleaning so long. I went over to Mr. Williams, and he came and he looked at the gut, and they never come back. Since before Cultural Rama. And if you pass down here, you could see doing a farm right there.
Okay, I know exactly. I know the voice and exactly what you're talking about. We do clean them from time to time, especially when the wet weather is coming. Yes, because they hold water, and it can be something to prevent flooding. But you say he hasn't come back.
No, and when the rain come and it flood over in my farm.
Right. Okay. All right. Let me reach out to them. But it is possible, Carl, and let me just say this to you and to others, that when you make contact with the government and they say they come in and they don't come, follow up.
Yeah, but I went up to Mr. Williams and I tell him if they don't come. About 3 weeks ago, I going back to Mr. Brand.
Okay.
But to let nobody come, and whenever the thing, when rain falls, it flood over into my farm.
Okay. Well, I have in fact cleaned those slabs, as we call them, as community projects over the time. I did not know it had got to that point again. So Let us look into it and see how we can bring some relief.
Down here one time you see my farm and you see where they got.
Yeah, well, I know everything. I know the farm, I know the gut. I just didn't realize that it had it was flooded out. You're talking about the gut that comes down into the slab right there, right?
Yeah, and it's overgrown now too.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that. These are some of the community projects that from time to time need to be done. And so I believe that we can do it for the government, or we can also partner with the Brownhill Community Group to get it done. But I know exactly what you're talking about, caller. As I said, I've done them in the past, so I understand. And we will bring some relief and try to correct that, because it's an important water course, also important to prevent flooding. So that's critically important to us. It is 9:57. We have 3 minutes left. We can probably take one more call if there's somebody out there with a pressing issue. Just to remind you that we will be having the House of Assembly, a special sitting to commemorate the 40th anniversary of independence. That will happen on the 28th of September, God willing. We hope to have that. And I'm told that I will also be having my press conference, my normal press conference, that should be happening, I think it's next week, Tuesday, in which, of course, I will provide updates and engage with the press. The Prime Minister and his team, I'm told, have left for United Nations, and it is my hope that they will have success there, of course, when they do step out on the international stage. They're stepping out on behalf of all of us. And so I wish them success and safe travels, and we hope that we will get some tangible results from these engagements with the rest of the world at the UN General Assembly this year. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've had a good show tonight. We've had a number of useful discussions. We brought some information to the table. I've spoken about the efforts being made in Bastia and in Charlestown for greater cooperation and collaboration to be more inclusive. And I think this independence was a remarkable achievement of inclusivity, that our people felt that they were part of it, and that I am hopeful that we can build on that. We have a good platform to build on after 1 year of this federal government and just now 9 months of the local government, and we're working together, and I think that that makes good sense, that we continue to try to see how we can collaborate to move St. Kitts and Nevis forward. Success in St. Kitts is success in Nevis, and success in Nevis is success in St. Kitts. We need to start to see this as one country, our country, and make the necessary adjustments in terms of our thinking accordingly. It has been my pleasure to be here with you tonight. I certainly look forward to the next occasion when I can have the opportunity to be here on the mark. I want to thank all those who called, all those who listened, all those who were part of the show. There was a lively discussion happening online, and we had a few hundred people tuned in, so that's always good. And I continue to encourage our people to engage in talk that really matters, talk that is responsible, talk that is civil, and even when we disagree, we don't need to be disagreeable. The band has struck up. We have to go. This show is rebroadcast tomorrow at 1 p.m. right here on Vaughan Radio. That's our quota. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of the show. Good night, and God bless you.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcast